So this is a story about how God came through for me after I almost got stabbed at my workplace. Late 2015 to early 2016, I began to know that I want to jump into the life coaching industry. And during that period, I was thinking to myself, how can I begin to get my toes wet and do things that, can allow me to begin to learn what it would be like to be a life coach. And at that time, I was thinking to myself, well, why not do youth work? You're working with teens, helping them to get clear on their visions, reach their goals, help them better their lives, all those kind of things. And I figured that would be a good place to start. Now, during that period, 2016, I went and got myself a job as a youth worker, and I had never experienced residential care before. And if you're not familiar with residential care, then well, stay tuned. So before that, I was working as a barista in a trampoline park. I did not have experience of being a youth worker or doing this kind of work. And this was a whole different paradigm from what I was used to. Now, the teens that we would work with, we referred to them as residents, and basically these were children who couldn't no longer live with their families because there was too much dysfunction in their first families, and they couldn't even stay with foster care. So we were the last resort, we were the last line of defense at residential care youth workers. And what would happen is they would send us into homes to live with these children and to practically raise them like their parents. Now, when we first got the job, they usually refer to these residents and their characteristics as being complex needs and challenging behaviors, which means things can go downhill very quick if you are not alert and you need to be switched on, basically. To a point, even one of the previous colleagues we were working with, there was a story that came out about how she had been stabbed by one of the residents, and the workplace had asked her to go and work again with that resident because the residents were all underage, under 18. So they had like diplomatic immunity from the law, but us as the workers, we were like sheep led to the slaughter. And during this period, we had worked throughout all houses in Western Sydney, and I had just been moved to a house in Seven Hills. Now, there was two residents at this house, and I had already worked with one of the residents before in a previous home, but the new resident was younger, had highly sexualized behavior, and I had never worked with him before. And even though he was younger, he was actually quite big for his age. Now, working at this new home with this younger resident, trying to get him to bed each night was an absolute mission. And the protocol for our workplace was, once it reaches a resident's bedtime, you are to go and take all the TV cord connections or game connections to try to incentivize them to just go to sleep. And whenever we would do this, there was like an 80% chance that we would trigger the resident to go off. So whenever this time of the night was coming up, you had to mentally prepare yourself for conflict. And I had already had an incident with this resident the night before where he attacked me because of bedtime. And I didn't want to go through that situation again. When that moment of the night was coming up, I tried to approach it very gently, like, hey man, you know what time it is, man, it's bedtime. And I'm hoping like he would kind of go along with it. Work needs me to take the calls, it's bedtime, I gotta take these calls. And he's like, what cord? And I'm like, oh, it's gonna be one of those nights, huh? So I go to take the cord, and the moment I take it, he's on me. He's tearing up the house, he's attacking me, he's shoulder barging me. And the protocol for our workplace is under no circumstances are we to physically touch or engage the kids like that. It is no touch policy. And when conflict was arising, we were meant to either run away and try to lock ourselves in our office. And usually you can gauge how intense a conflict is, whether you would need to actually run and flee. And I felt like it was beginning to hit that level of intensity. So I go to my office and I try to lock myself away, but he's coming after me. And he starts banging on the door. Bang, bang, bang. I'm coming in. And there's like two door bangs that I'm aware of now. You have the one that's like, I'm angry, I'm gonna let you know. Then you have the second, which is, oh no, I'm coming in here right now. And this was the latter of the two. This was the second kind of bang. He is coming in here. Before long, bang, bang, comes in, door slams flying, and he comes in, he has a sharp object in his hand because he broke into our aid cabinet and pulled out tweezers. And I'm thinking to myself, well, to hell with the hands-off policy. Now this is almost life or death. I need to make sure that I'm protecting myself and not being, stabbed in this kind of situation. I know a shank when I see one. And he starts walking towards me, and I'm trying to gauge it, and he tries to stick me. And somehow I maneuver and quickly grab his arm, and I use one arm to stop his arm and the other arm to try to push him away. And I'm able to wrestle the tweezers away from him and kind of push him out of the office to try to see if I can create that distance again. But he's not stopping, he keeps coming back at me. And now I'm not in a position where I can even escape because I'm also locked down. I got my back against the wall and he's in front of me coming after me. So I have no choice. I say to myself, I need to get him away from me basically. So I give him a strong push and he goes tumbling down. And I'm not gonna lie, at this point, I felt bad because I realized, no matter what, him trying to attack me, all these kind of things, in the end, he's still a child and ultimately I'm an adult and he's not gonna be able to take me out. And at this point, I think he got kind of understood that okay, I don't think I can take this guy on anymore. So he decides to just go to his room. And I go into my office and my anxiety and my blood is rushing, it's boiling because this was level 10 and I'm very agitated now. And I have to end up calling the police because the incident's taking place. And our protocol is once an incident takes place, you need to report it in, call cops if you've been attacked, all these kind of things. So I ended up having to call the cops and I didn't realize he went to sleep. I'm waiting on the cops, he's sleeping. I have to end up going to his room, knocking on his door and saying, hey, you gotta get up, man, cops are here. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, man, cops are here for you, man, for what you did previously. Ended up having to go to Seven Hills Police Station, log police incident report, and I was up until 5 a.m. just trying to get the paperwork done. And after that, man, I had PTSD symptoms. I couldn't sleep properly for a day or so because the whole situation happening 2 nights in a row was too overwhelming. And at that point there, I just had to cry out to God. I was like, God, this is too much, this is too overwhelming. I need you to do something. And thank God, the very next day I had my workplace call me up and they're like, Jason, we're gonna be relocating you to a new house with a resident that I actually had a great relationship with, I'm still friends with to this day. And at that point, I just thank God, man, you really pulled me out of this one. So that is a story I want to share with you about a time that God came through me where I almost got stabbed down my workplace, practically 2 nights in a row, really. And yeah, I hope that can just help bring some enlightenment to your day, to things that you may be going through, and just staying strong in your journey. Take care.